Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So, grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. I have someone amazing for you today. And she heard her whole life, oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, you're too opinionated. Maybe you felt that too. But no, she found out the answer to that and how to deal with her situation. I'm Dia, your host, and get ready to be blessed all the way from the other side of the pond. Let's welcome Kirsty Crouch. Hi, Kirsty.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. And welcome from sunny and quite warm UK.
Oh, wonderful. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Kirsty. She is a certified mindful meditation practitioner. She is committed to giving you the best support she can tailored to your needs. She helps business women to find that inner peace. Business is crazy, and she helps quiet the chatter and effectively manage your personal and business life through spiritual and holistic tools, techniques, and guidance. She has worked through this personally and come out on the other side with some experiences that she can share with you to help you along. Kirsty, tell us your story about coming to the answers of people saying you're just too opinionated, or even how that came about.
Yeah, so I've spent my whole life kind of feeling like I've not really fitted in. I've never felt like I've really belonged. I've never felt like there's always been that something that you don't really know what it is, but you know that it's there, that doesn't quite fit in with this world, and you spend your life wondering why. And I went through most of my school life and my work life getting picked on and getting bullied for being different and weird and sensitive, and I'd never get to XYZ, and I was too opinionated, and like jobs half done because I go off on a tangent halfway through something, and all of that stuff that probably a lot of you will have heard. And I struggled a lot through COVID. I was furloughed from my job at the time, so I got to a very low place, and I started using kind of spiritual meditation, mindfulness tools. I've always been into crystals and had a real affinity with nature and being around water. And I think after COVID, when I did go back to work, one of my managers at the time that had an autistic ADHD daughter, or one or the other or both, I don't know, basically said, and a couple of other kind of friends in social groups that had worked with people that had ADHD and that had neurodiversity, said to me more than once, you're inattentive ADHD. Have you had it tested for? Have you had an assessment? Because in the UK it's done as like an autism ADHD assessment. You're inattentive ADHD 100%. My manager said, if you're not, I'll eat my hat. And so
haven't had to eat, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah. And that's when I sort of started, it set something off in my brain. It sort of started a bit of a niggle, and I thought, I'll go off and research it, have a look. And the more that you look into it, the more that I looked into the signs of inattentive ADHD, especially in women, and spoke to my therapist about it and looked into it, the more things clicked. I finally felt like I'd found the reason that I'd spent my whole life searching for and didn't know that I'd been looking for it. And it made sense. It felt like for the first time I wasn't broken and I wasn't the odd one out, and those quirks and those traits that you know, people tend to pick up on and comment on because they don't fit in with that neurotypical societal box exercise that we're all expected to fit into, were just part of how my brain and how I think every ADHD person's brain has been scientifically shown to be wired.
So everybody is different. We all are made differently because we need to be all different. We don't need anybody. Even identical twins are different. They may look alike, but they may even have some same thoughts. They each have different gifts. And finding out that your differentness is just who you are helps you to start the belonging process. You have to belong to yourself first. So you were at a point where you went, oh, wait, I'm not weird. I'm me, and I'm who I am with what I am. And so after you investigated that and discovered that, you know, scientifically, it's you are who you are, and you are, it's not weird. It's who you are. It's different. So you got into finding ways to, well, also, COVID dealt everybody a blow. That's when whatever's down in a lot of people started coming up, and you had to learn to belong to yourself because you were the only person, unless it was with your family that was in your house too.
I mean,
also caused some problems.
I mean, I live with my husband. I only live with my husband at the moment and my pets, and so he was still going out to work, so it was pretty much me on my own the whole time, which, especially for somebody with ADHD, can be equally difficult because we want that companionship, but at the same time it can be very draining for us. It can be very overstimulating for us. And even doing, you know, something like this or online Zooms can be very, you know, very mentally draining because it takes a lot more for us to do that. And I've always been quite a social person. I've always been somebody that wants to be around people. But as I've gotten older, I'm finding that it's becoming more of a strain and more of a mental drain on my battery when I have social interactions, because it's just part of how our brains are wired. And I think there's such a lack of understanding of it, especially in women, and especially in the UK, that a lot of managers, employers, teachers, parents just don't understand that you know, this person isn't being difficult or being deliberately awkward or being a deliberate nuisance. They are struggling, or you just need to show them something in a different way, because that way doesn't click. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Right. It's especially with teaching styles or communication styles. I believe that there are 5 different languages of belonging that different people need to be treated different ways to feel like they belong. You know, some people may just feel like they belong if they have a physical hug, but some people would be repelled by that. So to have one style of communication or one style of teaching, and then it's like, if you can't speaking a different language, like if I'm trying to speak French to you and you don't know French, if I yell it louder,
it's not going to make a difference.
It's like putting a square peg in a round hole, and if I hit it harder. And that's what we find out happens when people don't stop and realize that there are differences. And it's so important we learn how to communicate with people, and also respect and honor how people operate.
And I think just take a step back and look at the situation and think, are they being difficult? Or actually, you know, is there something underlying? Because I think, you know, most people will probably say that a lot of children that continually bunk off school or continually aren't in school, there will be an underlying problem there. And if it's because they feel like they're struggling in school, certainly in this country, I can guarantee you that a lot of them are probably ADHD and undiagnosed ADHD, especially in girls, because we mask it and we learn to just get on with it and do what everyone else around us is doing. We don't have that outward hyperactivity that boys do. And I think the problem in this country is that the way they assess it is done a lot on how boys present. It's not done on how girls present. So if you don't present that outward hyperactivity and you get the good grades or you get okay grades and you can get friendships, then they go, well, you don't have ADHD, you're fine. But the hyperactivity is in the mind. And that's why that's why I kind of turned to doing meditation and wanting to support others with that, and especially ADHD women with that, because in themselves, those techniques are designed to help quieten the mind and help just calm things down. And it helps in ADHD because everything's more heightened. So if it helps to calm it anyway, it's going to help to calm that situation and just calm things down in the moment.
So in your research, have you found that ADHD shows up differently for women than for men, or girls than boys?
Yeah, so a lot of the research I've done, a lot of people that I've spoken to, my therapist who has experience with it, for example, it's the typical things that they often use, the typical outwardly hyperactive, running around, being really loud, being disruptive in class, things like that typically boys will show. Women don't present like it. The way the science of how it is in the brain is to do with all of like your prefrontal cortex and the parts of the brain that are to do with that stress response, and that kind of what I call that chimp kind of instinct stress response. And so it's kind of a bit of a double whammy, because you're hyperactive anyway, your brain's constantly going, and that's the part of the brain that is kind of to do with emotions and all that kind of thing. So because it's wired differently, we respond differently. That hyperactivity is in the brain because we can't switch off and to do with the emotions. But we've learned to mask it within society. We've learned to just get on with it and get the grades and make friends and fit in with society and do the things that as a woman we're expected to do. But there's often that silent and struggle of that constant brain drain and those constant emotions and that constant worrying and chatter and not being able to sleep because your brain can't switch off. And those are the things that a lot of people don't necessarily think are ADHD, because yes, it can be other stuff, but it's when you put it all together with a lot of other little things, it is very common signs for women in ADHD, and they just don't look at that. They look at it as the assessment tool that they use is designed for boys. It's not designed for assessing it in women, and that's the downfall of certainly where, in my opinion, it is in the UK at the moment. Is it's just misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all a lot of the time in women until early late 30s.
Wow. So okay, someone has said, oh wow, yeah, people keep telling me I'm opinionated, or I can't get my mind to go to sleep, or maybe I should find out if I do, or maybe I just did find out. So now what's the next step? A couple of tips here, or strategies for moving forward.
Yeah, I think for me, as I say, I've got my practitioner for mindful meditation. I'm doing my advanced coaching. For me, having that mindfulness and that meditation especially, and understanding our chakras and our energies as well, is a really useful tool to help with that emotional side, because everyone has that anyway, but it can be an added benefit in women with ADHD, because it certainly for me, it helps to calm that chatter, and it helps to just, if I feel that overwhelm starting to build and I feel that overwhelm starting to be too much, then just taking myself out of the situation and having a moment to just chill and put on some chakra music and do a bit of meditation and just think for a minute and just be in that present moment is a really effective way of kind of bringing it back down, because we will go to worst case scenarios anyway. We will think of every single situation possible anyway. So if you find yourself doing that in a lot of situations, then and you've got kind of the other things that are typically associated with it. You can't sit still, you aren't always fiddling with stuff, like you might find it difficult to make eye contact, you might feel uncomfortable in social situations, you might get really drained, all of that kind of stuff. There are very, very typical signs of ADHD, so it's worth going to see if you can get that confirmation, because even if you haven't got it, I mean, yes, I'm not a medical doctor to diagnose it, but from my experience, it's
Still going to
often
help.
that is the case. It is the case that often it's something like that, and it can help anyway. It can help
Right,
anyway,
right.
because it helps to bring us back down to that present moment and bring us back to the now and focus on where we are and look at situations more logically and come to a more logical conclusion, which, especially if you're in a situation where there is quite a lot of people and quite a lot of noise, as I call it, and quite a lot of kind of outside noise and influence and a lot of stuff going on that can be quite overwhelming for us, it can help just to take you out of it and get back to that moment.
Right. Well, and also all of this, again, is learning to belong to yourself. It also has a lot to do with emotional intelligence. What is your emotional intelligence? You have your IQ, but what's your EQ or your EI, emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
And the first one about it is being aware of your emotions. And a lot of this is just growing in your emotional intelligence, which you can improve. I guess you can improve your IQ, but I know you can improve emotional intelligence.
I don't think there's any set definition for it, but emotional intelligence is, I tend to look at it as more of a intuitive spiritual thing. So you're more in touch with your emotions, as people say. You might have more of a gut feeling about people, more of a vibe about certain situations or certain people. It's to do with that energetic flow and those chakras within the body and the energy within the body, and you can raise your energetic vibration. As you raise your energetic vibration, you will become more aware of stuff, you will notice more signs, you will notice more subtle things, stuff may start to hopefully fall into alignment more. And I think because we do have that emotional difference in how our brains are wired, and there is that rejection sensitivity side there as well, we sometimes can be more emotionally intelligent than some people that aren't in touch as much with that spiritual side.
Well, another part of the emotional intelligence is managing your own emotions. And from what you're saying, when you are more aware of how you function, you can say, oh, wait, I'm getting overwhelmed. Now I'm going to manage my emotions. I will go meditate, or I will stop and let the noise settle. So there's that. We are having a great conversation, but we'll be right back after this short message. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. Welcome back, awesome belongers. I'm here with Kirsty Crouch, all the way from the UK. We're glad to have her here. And we've been talking about realizing that maybe you are ADHD. You're just wired differently. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. But just aware of that, belonging to yourself and how you are. And I ask all my guests, what makes you feel like you belong? And Kirsty, do you remember what you wrote about what makes you feel like you belong?
I think for me, it's that sense of finding that community and finding those people that you can gel with and you feel comfortable with and you feel safe with. And I think that you can be yourself without putting on that mask and that front, and without having to worry about what they're going to think or if they're going to judge you, and just being able to be your true self and you're the person that we all are inside, but probably a lot of us hide that for certain situations or put on a front for certain situations. I know I did for a lot of years, and I think I'm now starting to slowly accept and slowly allow myself to be who I am. And if people don't like that, then that's their problem.
Right. So yes, we aren't supposed to belong everywhere.
No.
We're supposed to belong where we fit in, where we can be who we are authentically.
Mm.
You can associate, but you don't truly belong if you're not being yourself, because you're not the one belonging.
Yeah.
You're another version of yourself is the one belonging. So I agree.
I think to some extent our brain will get in the way, and this is something that I talk about in one of the lessons in my online course, is that we still have that base primal instinct to belong to a group, to belong to a tribe, because
we're made to be
we're made to be a part of a tribe. If we did anything to go outside of that, then it was bad. It meant that we would stay away from, we would disrupt the tribe, we would disrupt that kind of primal instinct. Anything outside of that meant bad. So I think if we go outside of our comfort zone or start to go outside of that, if we do something and we feel that resistance, you've got to ask yourself if it is genuine gut instinct saying that there's something that you should be wary of, or if it's just your primal instinct and your what I've heard other people call, what I tend to call chimp brain, and your ego brain getting in the way, because it's kicking in that base instinct of keeping you safe. But what it needed to keep you safe from, touch wood, luckily, a lot of the time now we're lucky enough to not have those same threats, but our brain will still think there is. So it's recognizing that whether it's genuine gut instinct or whether it's just you getting in the way and your brain getting in the way. And I think recognizing how you respond to stress and how, because everyone responds to it in a slightly different way, they'll have different symptoms, and emotionally and spiritually and mentally, how you respond to that, you can then start to recognize and intercept those symptoms and use techniques to reduce those symptoms and manage those symptoms and remove those narratives of something being a danger when a lot of the time it isn't.
Yes. And the more comfortable you are with yourself and not trying to please other people, the more that you can, your vision is clear about that. So your favorite quote?
Yes.
Is?
So I think, I've got a couple, I guess, but
the one you told me, done better than perfect, and I
yes, that's
that.
There's that one.
Newsletters, or when I work on
done is better than perfect.
Nobody is gonna double read this. They're just gonna skim it, send it. Done is better than perfect.
That can be difficult for people that have ADHD, because I certainly have that level of OCD and perfectionism and people pleasing and worrying about what others think to some extent. But the more that sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet and do it, and worry about the next part later on, because it's gonna, that ADHD part of it is going to get in the way. But I mean, I tend to like a lot of quotes from films and TV shows and things. One of my other favorite quotes from probably a very geeky film, depending on if you like comics, is one from the original first X-Men film, which is humanity will always be afraid of what it doesn't understand. And I think that lack of understanding and that lack of seeing things from potentially a different perspective is what gets in the way of a lot of things, and is why a lot of people have problems in the workplace or in school, because people look at it from that neurotypical perspective. And if you don't fit in the boxes that society has, and you don't fit in the boxes that they have in their heads, then they can't process it. But for us, we don't, it's the other way around. We don't, I a lot of times stuff is very much black and white. We don't deal with grey very well, because our brains can't, our brains don't process it. It's very, that is what it is. So it might, sometimes there's just that understanding and that conversation, that explaining, and that realizing why something might not quite be clicking.
Right.
So yeah.
So you also have available, people can go to your website and download 5 top tips for people with ADHD, people that need to get more focus. That is amazing. I wanted to mention that before we moved on to your greatest accomplishment. What do you feel is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I've always said that one of my greatest achievements is getting my veterinary nurse degree. I'm also a qualified registered veterinary nurse, so or veterinary technician. I think if you're US, it's same thing. But yeah, I'm a registered veterinary nurse. So for me, getting that qualification is always something that I will hold on to, and I will keep up to date and do the CPD for. But I think certainly getting to the point I have now has been taking a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of heartache, a lot of battles to some extent, a lot of mental and physical health battles. It's always going to be something that's ongoing. I think for anyone with any mental health condition or any kind of neurodiversity, irrespective of whether it's ADHD or not, there's always going to be that ongoing battle and that ongoing struggle to some extent. But if you can use the tools that I'm aiming to support people with, and my goal is to get that empowerment and that awareness, then I think it can really make a lot of difference to a lot of people, and potentially you may find that it can change your life for the better, because it has done for some people.
Well, there's one thing for sure. You never gave up.
No.
You could have said, oh, wow, I have that. Well, I never can do so and so. So I can, congratulations to achieving
Yeah, thank
first
you.
diploma of your advanced coach practitioner and all the other things, building your own business,
Yes.
being available to help people. You overcame a number of obstacles and didn't let anything give you an excuse. You have results or you have excuses.
Yeah.
And you have had results, and congratulations to you on that. For our last few moments here, do you want, what final word or what ending comments do you want to share with our belongers listening?
I think for me, it's something that, again, a friend said to me quite a long time, well, a while ago now, that she said, one thing I will say is that you're a fighter, and you will always fight for what you want. And I think that for me is one of the key things, is if you don't give up. If you want something and you really know that you want to make a change and you want to do something and you want to, don't give up, carry on fighting, carry on working out what their goals are, how you can achieve them. I have been told many a time by people that I would never get anywhere and I would never do anything. My secondary school PE teacher, high school equivalent, PE teacher told me that I would never get anywhere and never do anything, and I should give up. And I got a in GCSE PE because I'm stubborn and I don't like being told I can't do something, and I don't like being told I'm not going to do something. And if
Maybe
I
that's the
want
secret.
something, yeah, if I want something enough and I want something hard enough and I have the vision, then I will do anything in my power to get it. I am a very stubborn, tenacious person in that respect, but I think that's what you've got to do sometimes.
Yes. So don't quit. Keep going. You got this.
Yeah.
So,
If you, the only person you're failing if you quit is yourself.
yes. And the only person that really fails is the one that doesn't get up and try one more time.
Yeah.
To
And
fail.
then everyone else wins.
Yes. So thank you, Kirsty, for sharing your experience
Thank
and
you.
your knowledge. And thank you, awesome belongers, for joining us here. I'm so glad that you could be here with us. Remember to stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always know that you belong. This is Dia Irby, your host of Here Where You Belong. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Hear Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.